future of his story. This is episode number 2. We're very excited to be joined by our dear brother, the man, the myth, Todd Medina, the prolific communicator. And we're going to dive deep into his story and the past, present, and future of masculinity. So if you are joining live, let us know in the comments, and we shall bring our brother, Todd, in. Hello, bro.
Hey, what's up? What's going on?
Good,
I'm
all is
looking at
good.
the YouTube, just making sure it comes on. Yeah, I think it is.
Are we
Did you
on?
check the Facebook?
The Facebook I can
It's
check
it's
now.
it's my old rhythms. Just checking them. It looks like it. Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're on.
yeah.
Yes, I see it too. We got it. So welcome, brother. Good to have you here. Good to see you in a
It's
in
good.
a new
It's good to see
location.
you. What's that?
I say it's good to see you again. I know you're in a new location. You've had a big adventure and a lot of movements on your side. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really wanted to bring you in to chat today on this kind of new project of the future of his story. And we've had a lot of conversations before on multidimensionality and non-duality and darkness and light and everything in between. And really today, I really would like to hear your story, because I've heard bits and pieces of your story, but I would love
Oh,
to hear, to maybe fill in some blanks and maybe for some other people, because for those who don't know, I don't know what rock you'd be hiding under, but this man, I don't know if you've ever checked this. Do you know how many views? Because I checked this today. Do you know how many views are on your YouTube channel?
yeah. There's like the last time I looked, like a little over 2 million, but we didn't actually start on YouTube until probably maybe 1,500 shows,
That's what I was
something
thinking.
like that.
That would be
Yeah.
the small. That would be the smaller channel. If you had the metrics on Facebook, you're in the millions. This prolific. How many shows was it in Solitude?
Uh, we did we did over 4,000.
4,000 shows. A minute. Like, just think how many hours that is. So yeah, over 2 million views on YouTube, but that started afterwards. And so you've been asking a lot of questions, having a lot of communications, and bringing people into these spaces. And today I would really, the theme is masculinity, the divine masculine, but I'd really love to hear your story, whatever, maybe some things you've not shared before, or just fill in some blanks on your story for those who know you, and then for those who don't know you. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey in this turnaround.
Uh, well, so I would just, in this new energy, just postulate, what is my story? The story that was, say, up to 2024, just to make it easy. Um, that's the old story. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think there was, if the subject line is masculine energy, um, which we've all dived into with the masculine feminine thing for so many years, and so many things and so many different things have been put forth. But I have the utmost reverence and respect and love for the man that I was prior to basically November of last year. So roughly the first of the year, and I think that kind of follows some of the collective energy that we all experience, male and female. I think really, it's so hard to talk about these subjects after all these years because you have that linear context, and it really isn't. But I would just say that, given months and years and dates and the way things seem to cycle with the moon and all that, y- we're still in a different place, or I feel like I'm still in a different place. And it's like the chalkboard got erased.
Mm.
And so there's elements of that man prior, and I could be speaking collectively, I could just be speaking about myself. I think they're related for all of us, but that man had a lot of courage, a lot of wounds, a lot of humility gained, as we all did through the dark nights of the soul and so on. Did his best in that distorted atmosphere, which we might call the patriarchal or narcissistic realm, and clued in with a lot of other people talking about it, in those type of environments, and getting to a point where we're on the other side, but not the other side where we can just kick back and say, okay, it's all done. But I do think we can say all the old stuff's done, and it's just left in us, right? So if I go back to the question, I think it's two different men, totally.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, since I spent the first half of the year still in the last 5 months of, say, 37 months physically separated from Morgan, and in June we reunited. Now I'm looking at this not so much on a personal level, but an energetic level, and I think from that point on there was a whole new being uh, being birthed, and it's a very quick quantum type of thing. I think a lot of people will attest to that. The information is coming in even faster and faster. We're understanding it more. We're self-sourcing more. We can talk about a lot of these general subjects, but if the subject is the masculine, I would say that basically, and I'm not really exaggerating from my point of view, and this is a very positive statement. I think that literally you're ripped, not ripped because that sounds a bit harsh, but you're literally unsheathed, peeled every single day. And so every day you wake up and it's not based on what you know, in so many words, what you can provide from the mind that was the masculine, but it's really like we're all finding out, masculine and feminine, I believe, that, are you coming from the heart? And it changes the landscape of everything. And it often happens for me on a day by day basis. In fact, I believe it's accelerating, and I think the collective energy itself is accelerating, as well.
Mm. That's amazing. So, like, one of the questions you always ask when someone new would come on is, you ask, like, when did you wake up? So you have had, but it sounds like to me you've had a secondary. Well, we wouldn't count like one, two. That we have multiple things, but something's happened recently where this is just a complete renewal, a complete new being. Maybe even moving beyond this idea of masculine, feminine. What happened? Apart from the obvious, what shifted?
Well, for me on the linear timeline, I started involving myself or initiating soulgy. But there obviously was etheric, energetic, cosmic, and whatever connections that we're reawakening to, things that we have planned as souls to do together. And but from the point of what you're asking me, just as what was my experience, I went through this period where I was looking for this other person who I didn't know who it was. And I'm like, every day creatively driving my sacred sexuality, unbeknownst to myself, into these creations that were words and that were pictures and so on. And then, Soulgy really exploded when that etheric feminine came in form. And that's really the basis of Soulgy, is the Soul Speaks 5D when you really think about it. And that was a joint thing that kind of came from our own conversations from the day that we met on the phone. But for getting back to your question, it became like a crescendo. Went into, and it coincided with COVID, which I don't think is something that's going to surprise people, because I think we all went through a lot from 2020 till 2023. So what ended up happening was we were traveling around a lot. We finally got our own place. And of course, the energies, the COVID had kicked in and so on. And there was, by the humans' experience, a physical separation. But the connection continued in this grand play that we're all involved in. But getting back to the man, I kept driving, before, during, and after what I just spoke of, until we came together in June. And again, this is both a personal story, but I think it's a metaphorical for, as the individual goes, so goes a collective. I just kept driving myself into Soulgy, right? And I, like everybody else, suffered to whatever degree, it doesn't really matter, of the wounded healer, where, oh, no matter what's going on in my life, I can pick up my lunch bucket, go to work, and I'm doing something. And I think there's some truth to that. But again, that's the old masculine
Mm.
and the old atmosphere, because it wasn't available until after we came out on this other side. So for me, uh, we had when I did a Solo G1 right after she went back to Australia, Solo G2 the next year, I got arrested and never went to that that one, that big story. And then Solo G3 was in Houston, and it really aligned very organically. Really, all of it did, but it was a very wild atmosphere. And I know I was driving stuff as a man, but I didn't know what I was doing totally. But when I came out of that last Sology in December of 2023, I was done. Like I was just absolutely spent, and I just went into like a zombie state. But a month prior to that, on the 9th of November, I would say I had a wake up call, or something happened. It felt like I was in this vortex. It was going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and and it was all really centered on my being and my relationship with Morgan. And I woke up one morning, and we hadn't been talking for quite a while, and so I said, I gotta email her. I gotta see if I can, speak to her, not with any, um, uh, expectation or attachment or agenda, but just to bring those two souls together, right? And that's what happened. So if you look at it energetically from the man's standpoint, that was a place where, regardless of all the rhetoric and the narratives and the histories and the feminine and the masculine and the right and the wrong, the dark and the light and all that stuff, right? Uh, it was kind of like, fuck this, I want to see you. And from there, I would say that marked the moment. That was the moment. Very good question. I hadn't even thought about it. But that marked the moment, because much like my first awakening, like we all had at, say, on or around 2012, there was a heart, soul, mind connection, or, ignitement, or something in me that said, fuck this. I'm going to pursue happiness. I'm going to pursue this heart based, which is, obviously beyond me, beyond Morgan. It's for the entire collective. I'm going to pursue this at all cost, you
Mm.
know. And from there, it seems like a couple of things have happened. One, obviously, I'm very ingrained in the masculine feminine relationship and evolution with Morgan, and it's been a fascinating, incredible journey. And like I said earlier, it's literally it's just huge expansions every day, and to share that with somebody is incredible.
Mhm.
But anyway, so from there, I think from there, one, that the ability to be in a relationship like this, opening a man's eyes deeper as all the energy itself, or the consciousness itself, in on the earth is expanded and more available. That you're able to see things and shift faster, and then when you do it with someone else, it's pretty incredible. There's some kind of incredible, regardless of all the theories of the twin flames and this and that, there's something about the math and the geometry and the language and the coding of a masculine energy coming together into that sacred union field, that 0 point field, and things are birthed from there, and it's wild and it's unknown and it's loving and it's coming, and I think it's an incredible thing to be a part of. So the first thing is having the ability to see myself deeper every day and not get stuck to the elevation I just had the day before, or whatever the case is, right? To actually wipe the slate every day. And I think the second thing is that, although we can all say, I feel for the most part, if we really examine our lives, especially from on around 2012, the third energy, we can call it the Holy Spirit, the Golden Child, whatever you want to call it, uh, showed us many times through synchronicity and organic, unfoldments, that it was working with us. But since that time, since this second wake up that you identified, the third energy is much more prominent. It's much more communicative. Um, and when you obviously when you have two or more, be it a moment, an hour, an evening, a week, or whatever whatever it is, a convention or retreat, it can be. It's mind blowing what it can be, and I think we're stepping into this now. And to keep this on what you're looking to explore, the masculine, you know, there's been a few people that have talked about this time that really I think you could mark by the equinox of last month. Morgan talked about it for quite a while. Franco referred to this time right now, when we would reach a point when all of that stuff would be gone and we would start to create. And so I feel like that for myself, that um, this is what I'm kind of focusing on every day. Where do I drive my energy? Where do I drive my power and my contribution to myself as a masculine, to my relationship, to the world? Uh, you know, taking as much of the potential that I have in a given spontaneous moment like this and really feeling that sacred sexual energy, you know, uh, feeling that power to seed, that power to create, and really try to explore that. And I find that in the first 22 days, oh, it's funny, it's 22 of October, 11/22. But in the first 22 days of this October, which is new beginnings, nine is completion, right? And September of last month was 9 years of Morgan and I completion. So we're beginning again. So there's a lot of symbology and imagery that's being shown that's guiding. But I feel like that's where it's at now. It's not about who I was, who what it's just something totally new where for me anyway, you drop everything that you think you know, and that's what I was talking about with the getting unpeeled every day, and
Mhm.
not in a bad way at all, just in the personal insight that you have, and if you're blessed enough to be with someone else, to also what's shared between you and what comes from that third energy. But to me, it's become we were doing a session last night and Morgan was channeling, and at some point I said, or it came in, that even those voices will disappear.
Yep.
So we will be here. And then she expanded on it better than I could, but it was, something to the effect of, she said actually a different way. She said it'll all come down to the one voice. Well, the one voice isn't necessarily everybody speaking the same. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
it's an energetic thing. It's a above telepathy thing,
Yep.
and so I really feel like that's and the ironic thing is that in March of 2020, when COVID hit, that the big thing came down. We were in Florida in the Atlantis region. We'd been in Kauai, Lemuria. We traveled, through the states, I think 22, 20, 23 states, ended up over there by chance. And then COVID takes off. And we were getting a lot of visitations. There's always a lot of activity when we're together. And so there was quite a few different, I'd say, aspects that came in and merged and, different things and communicated. But one of the very last ones was these reptilians. And they came in, and I told this story before, we told it on other shows, but they came in and basically said, our job is over. Now we're looking at this energetically. We don't get caught up in the narratives of, you know, the purported histories, and they don't even matter because, again, it's all about right now.
Yep.
All that was information. So, but anyway, getting back to the point, they came in and they said, our job is over. Um, we're leaving now. It was tough, like seeing their side of that energy, like, what's on the other side. Like, you think that the bad guys don't have bad days, like we think we are the good guy. You know what I mean? Everybody goes through the same old shifts, right?
Yeah.
But I remember the next day getting up and, and I was like, uh, man, I wonder who it's going to be next. Right. And she said, it's going to be us. And there's certain things that she'll say along the way that will like imprint in my head. and I see that. And last night that kind of came in. Um, so yeah, I feel like that. Whatever we're moving into, it's not real easy to describe. I'm not the person to do it. But as far as the subject matter of what you're trying to dig into, again, we don't know. So for me, it's really kind of there's like a parallel with my, I guess you would say, my perspective or my approach as a soul, and it applies the same to my masculine. And I would say the third thing that has come to be, one being the expanded awareness since November of last year, two being the greater, uh, the greater mutuality between myself and, my relationship and the third energy. And the third thing I was just getting to and I forgot. Was that a huge part of this second awakening, as you referred to it, and it's been progressive and evolved, by scale. It's scaled, as we can take things like everything else, has been uh, um, the real connection with my feminine within myself. The real connection, because as things have expanded and my awareness has grown. So, therefore, many things change because of that. But the basis of my life being this incredible relationship, the understanding of the feminine that I'm looking at, and I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. You know what I mean? But there's a feminine inside of me that's got a voice, and I think that's a huge part of this masculine in me, that every time I can wipe the you know you know everything that's happened, I wake up the next morning, I have all the information, but nothing applies.
Mm.
uh, there's no old rhythms of the masculine that I knew I had or didn't know I had. I'm not saying that it's perfect, I'm just saying that there's this new awareness, and the only way that I can see the further advancement, awareness, and expansion, evolution of my masculine and my contribution in that department to the world and so on is by allowing more and more and more of that feminine to create the atmosphere. Let that sink in, because there's no constructs from the old which we might associate with masculine because they were carried out by the masculine as a result of the patriarchal, being their soldier,
Mm.
but to really allow that feminine energy to show itself and provide that, that space in between, and then as a masculine try to create from that fertile field
Mm.
that's brand new. So how does this work? Because you don't have any of the same construction pieces that you had in the old thing. Everything was straight lines over there. This is all wavy and curves and frequencies and bandwidths, and so really, I feel like just 3 weeks really into this, I've probably written 5 soul speaks, which I hadn't been doing any of that. I obviously haven't done any shows. I don't know that I don't. At this point today, I actually don't feel like there'll ever be another Soul Speaks 5D. Um, I feel like that. Not that there. I value it. I see people referring to it all. Enough to know that there was a lot of good done, and it was constructive. But we're in a new place. And just like we can't hang on to our past lives, or we can't hang on to, well, I don't say can't, but like going back to that session last night, it will come down to the one voice. In other words, all those voices will leave, and it will only be me and you, right? This is 3 weeks into it, as I see it, and so if the masculine is to create, the question to me is, or the question I seek on my morning walk is, how do I create in this new environment, other than getting to know the environment as best I can and to encourage the expansion of that environment, to allow that feminine energy to become in such a state of trust
Mm.
that it fully and more fully and fully and fully opens itself up. I mean, the only thing, people talk about everything in the past, future, and present happened at the same time. I understand that. But the one thing that hasn't happened, and nobody can prove it, not anybody, not Einstein, nobody, is what can happen from this right now. Like, like if we are having the advantage of, let's say, all these parallel lives or past lives or greater awareness and knowledge that we actually apply at some level on a more conscious basis as human beings, then maybe we're in the same, maybe, for instance, maybe Morgan and I have done this 10 million times on Earth and come back and come back and come back. Let's do it better. Let's do it better. All of us, whatever it is. I don't understand it, but
Mm.
I do believe that the present moment is the only moment. So give it your best shot. And I believe that the world itself, regardless of all the bullshit that's portrayed, and it's quite interesting to observe the extremity of polarity in these light worker groups, because I really haven't been on social media. And when I come in, I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
Trump this or this or whatever the subject is. But
Yeah.
I guess really, just to sum it up, that for me, I don't know. I know that my heart and my soul want to create in inspiration and devotion uh, through the energetic expression, whether it's one song or one show or one moment in nature or whatever it may be, and to allow that feminine energy to pretty much have carte blanche, just go, and just let it out there, you know. And if the pendulum goes a little too far this way, well, we already know what it does over here. So if we're trying to get to 0 point, how is it going to swing from let's say the masculine side and just stop? It's not. It's got to go like that, right? And then it'll find its little groove, which we experience all the time, all of us individually in our daily, interactions.
Wow. Man, what a I've heard we've spoken many times, and I've seen a lot of what you're sharing, but I feel such a different, like everything you've described there, but you can feel it in the words and in the silence between the words, what's not been said, that you're coming from a completely different place. You can feel it, you can hear it, you see it, but like you described, it's we can't say it, we can't describe it, we can't pinpoint this, we can't put it, because it's not this what we had before. We had this, like it's like this and one plus one, and adding it all together and acting a certain way and getting these causes causing these effects. Now you're coming from this empty space, which moves beyond this idea of a present moment as a something. It's like as what I was hearing when you're saying. It's like this idea before is we had, oh, the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist, but we've got this thing called a present moment, like an actual thing that we can point towards. But it's a no thing. It's not a thing. It's not a something that we can attach to or label. And this label of that present moment kind of got used in a way that I feel ironically took us out of this place that we are, which is just placeless, and it's just a flow. And I really feel like that, that spaceless space that you're coming from is coming through in the unseen, in the unheard. And I know it was 9 years ago. I know I met my beloved around, I think it was within a few months. We were the winter solstice 2015, and I think you were a few months before that. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
And you've
So you did your 9 month, your 9 years too.
exactly,
So
and we're a little bit behind you, but I know you were a few months before. But we're in this space now where we are really feeling like we are to move on somewhere, but we're just like, uh, we're just open for it, but we're really feeling it. We're really feeling like we're to move. And funnily enough,
yeah.
we have been getting callings towards the part of the world you're in, actually, around that area. So that may be coming, but like before, I would like plan it, look it out. How can we do this? I just have to be in this space of surrender to see it come. But I feel like we're going to be there soon, actually. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
not just Mexico, but further south as well. Yeah, we're really getting that call, and we got a massive wake up call a couple of days ago, where maybe you could speak to this. When we are out of integrity with what we know is true for us, the consequences of that now are like instantaneous and very, very loud. We were something appeared the other day, and we were just like, we saw that we'd gone down a line with something where we just knew it wasn't it wasn't in our highest, but we were just taking it
Right.
because it was what was there. And then boom, within like a couple of days, it was like intense. And it's like we don't get this going down months, years down this path of getting lost and veering too far off where we're being called to. It was like instant, and that was the moment where we were like, okay, we hear it. We're back on, and yeah, it's really
Right.
calling us in that general part of the world, to be honest. So
Yeah. Well, we've experienced this. We've been talking about this the last 2 or 3 days. Um, and what I'm referring to is, you know, let me try another angle. um, Ascension can be a distraction as much as anything else. All right. Some people might look at a distraction and a distortion as two different things, but they're really not in terms of the transition that we're making. So, ascension can be a distraction at some point because the emphasis to me, and from what I'm experiencing with Morgan and viewing with others, not just from a distance, but also in interacting with them, and then even what you're saying now, is that that word that got contorted like all the other ascension related words, the present, being present,
mm,
presence, um, is real, and it requires 100%. I mean, I'm not saying requires because there's no forcing here. There's no constricting or restricting. It's just by our own choice. But the point is, it's a free flow thing, and it's really walking in trust. And we've said these things over the years, and they're cliches, and we're in a different place. But this is actually it. If it's all coming to one voice, and we're not going to hear our guides anymore, because
mm,
that makes us different, and I'm not making fun of anybody because it's all happened to all of us. We can either admit it or not. It doesn't really matter. The bottom line is, it seems to me, I'm trying to write some stuff, and the first the two lines that came out was that the Trinity grows the way it flows. So, in other words, we know the Trinity energy is the expansive accelerator of this new grid, or however you want to formulate this new geometry, new earth. And how do you grow it? The way it looks, the way it feels, the way it flows. And that does require, um, or it is, I guess, subjected to the level or degree of presence that you and one, two, three, whatever it is, others have in that moment. And I feel like that, like what you're doing, the three of you, yeah, Morgan and I can relate to this. Um, you're having these things unfold and be shown to you. And by virtue of that, you're learning the programs that limited you because, and a lot of empaths can relate to this. We're all empaths in the world, by the way, even the dark people. Uh, is You do it so you can, you do it because you want to be nice, or you do it because it's the right thing, or because they're, or you do it out of survival. You do it because there's a pattern to it. So you start to see these things, and we've been talking about this last 2 3 days because we've had some things come around again. you
Mm.
know. Like for example, we were very nomadic. We would go places and it wouldn't be balanced, right? So then, that whole transition took place, and then as you're seeing these things come up again in this new atmosphere of 2024 and beyond, we have a different insight. We may not always catch it right away. Like we had a situation a couple of weeks ago. We were going to a certain place. There was a certain arrangement. We hadn't seen it, and when we went there, we got a tour from this person, and I just, my feminine kicked in. If you want to know the truth, Morgan and I weren't talking about it while we were on site because we couldn't. And I just saw energetically, this isn't where I want to be. I can see there's a lot of energy here that needs a lot of maintenance, and it's not my energy kind of thing. But but it was a great person. It was a great looking place. It was just not meant, and then something unfolds. Um, so I think that that's part of it. And one of the things that we're experiencing these last 2 3 months since we've been in together, able to sleep together. 37 months without seeing each other, 38 months without sharing the same bed. But there is a direct, I don't know, alchemy, transformational equation, magic, but there's a connection between uh, our, I guess you would call it lovemaking, but it's far beyond what we might think of in the old vernacular. It's all day long, every day. There's something about the nucleus, the core of whatever geometry, say it's an octahedron or whatever that we represent together, that every part of it is directly linked to what manifests. And when it becomes, and the more conscious it becomes as the connection gets tighter and tighter, and it goes in and comes out and goes in, but you have these moments of intimacy, be they what they may, right? We can do it many ways: holding hands, staring at it. There's a lot of ways. uh, there's a direct link when that consciousness, that one mind and one voice, has the same intention. We've actually had this happen twice in very loud terms. So the first example, I get over here. She's in a studio for a few days. 2 or 3 days before we got to go, we hit that point. And this is not what humans might say full blown intimacy, okay? But this was intimacy, and we said this is what we'd like. The next morning, we got it. And it's like a needle in a haystack situation. And then the same thing happens a few weeks later. Now, the reason I expanded on this is because um, whatever the experiment or the experience is here that we all chose to come to and find this uh, wild goose chase or whatever, it is based. There's something about the physicality of it. We've done it inside ourselves. We don't give ourselves the credit because of the very questions we ask of ourselves and the depths that we dive into and the openness that we have. All right. But when you share it with somebody else in the physical, this is a replication of what occurs at the origin, at the cellular, at the molecular, and so on and so on and so on. And it has multidimensional ramifications and reach. It's not to be lessened in all of that or greater. So I feel like that in order for that to happen, I can't speak on the feminine journey, but what I've observed, uh, but I can speak on the masculine's journey. And again, the more I allow that feminine energy to, and I'm not just talking about my wife, I'm talking about me. Let it let it all be there. You know, it's not the pace it was before. It's all new. And if I'm the one that has to construct it, if I'm the creator, then uh, you know, how am I going to do that? If I don't understand how what the components are. Right now, all I can see is the components of or not the components, but the actual. It's like an atom. What is an atom? Is like what 99% space, right? So it's like maybe I'm the electron or the proton, and I'm running around here thinking, it's just me and the neutron and the electron, and then all of a sudden you realize there's all this space, and you get into that space, or you expand that space when these three things come into union, right? The masculine, feminine, going whatever it is, and to me it's like to me like entering um, the mother's womb. It's dark, it's a void, you don't know what's in there, and you only go and the only thing you can do is the only way you can get in is through pure love. And once you get in there, something far greater than you could ever imagine, or your partner or anyone, is there. But you can't get a peekaboo, these forecasts and predictions and all that. I mean,
Hmm.
it's code, but that's really it. We go into an unknown, and that's how we rebirth, and to be able to have the opportunity to do it in the physical with another human being, whether we've had thousands and thousands and millions of lives together or not, it's not the point. The point is we've entered this space again, and there's some level of innateness in our memory banks that we know this stuff, and it's pretty exciting. Um, but as a man, I would just tell you, I don't know anything. I'm just sharing my experience.
It's beautiful, brother. And I loved how you shared there about intimacy and the different ways in which intimacy can be. And as you said the word intimacy, I didn't hear intimacy. I heard into me see.
Hmm.
Into me see. And it's like it's this much deeper understanding of what we've called intimacy before, especially probably from the level of the masculine. But it's this real into me see, this complete openness of seeing ourself, seeing this depth of potential when we can get that reflection from an apparent other that is really another aspect of ourself. And when we can get
Yeah,
into me see, we're into the core of our being, and that's where all creation is birthed from, rather than this haphazard mechanical, cause and effect way
yeah,
that we've created from before as the masculine energy. It's beautiful to feel
yeah.
that. I literally couldn't hear intimacy. I could only hear intimacy.
Into It's funny because I've been using the number two, like in a few things I've written in the last. I try to get back into this thing last week or so.
Yes.
I use the number two. I use the number two consciously in the way I'm trying to develop this writing, because it does start with two. It really does, in this place in time, in this that's the opportunity, and it doesn't mean, to me, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's Todd and Morgan, or a couple like that, or you. It's any occurrence. We have the ability now, and we're experiencing this, and we're at different levels of consciousness of it, and some know other parts and others know other parts, to actually create these 0 point um, occurrences at any and all times, because the presence speaks to spontaneity, creativity, sacred sexuality, uh, intuitiveness, this higher telepathy. It's all coming together. And that's why I say the Trinity energy grows by the way it flows. It's one and the same thing. We're looking at, we want to get to heaven, or we want to get to nirvana, or we want to be in 0 point. It's it's not that it's a moving target. It's just a journey where the steps, you have to step into it to sustain yourself in it, and to get back to it when you fall out of it. But I think for me, or the way I feel, and it's not really my natural thing, is that to me it feels, I mean, as far as like to say something like this, to me it feels like the math is totally different on this side.
Mm.
that the more we bring, we've had encounters since we got here the first day with a guy that lives here, that was on the show a couple of years ago. Beautiful guy, you know. We have this encounter, and it's like surreal, and it's full of code, you know. And then we had it with a couple other people and with a couple. Just a day, a couple of different nights we met with them, and a stranger we met the other day, and so there's these little intersections, these meeting points, these nexus points, that, be it for 5 minutes an evening, whatever the case is, that energy will be seen. And keeping in mind that activations are triggers and triggers are activations, some people react some way, some people react the other way. The idea is for me anyway, is not to get caught up on the human story and, oh my God, why did he do that, or why did she do that, or why did I feel it, but to recognize the potential and the opportunity. Because as I go back to talking about the womb, for me, that's my that's the way I see it, right? Is that you're going into, there's no guarantee, you're going into this space, and that is love and that is faith, but it's to focus on, um, you know, the symbology and what's presented to you. And like you're talking about the other day, y'all stepped into something that you went, oh, we shouldn't have done this, and then it got loud. But to honor that, to learn from that, make the best choice you can, and and uh, and try to find that moment. You know,
Mm.
um, and I and I think we experienced this a lot over the years, but we got caught up, and rightfully so, because that's what we were unwinding from. We got caught up a lot in the explanation and the story
Yeah.
and our programs and our conditions. And so, one of the great things that's helped me since 2012 was music. I danced for the first couple of years every night, and it was a wordless place I could go. Another one would be, and what I'm talking about is that feeling, that space, that intersection point. And another would be just improvising situations, be it music or not, with other people. But obviously, the you know that can be found, for me. The deepest part of that is into me, right? Intimacy, whatever you said. It is for me, and that just happens to be the role I'm playing, or, part of whatever you want to call it, is that on all accounts with that feminine within myself and my partner, right? So really, like I said, I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg, but um, to actually, because it's not an easy thing to do.
Mm.
It's not an easy thing to get up in front of a microphone and talk to people, whether they're in front of you or online. It's not an easy thing to sing. It's not an easy thing to dance. It's not an easy thing to step up to the stage and try to be a comic. These are all intimacy. I'm opening my heart, right? My intention, and I can speak for everyone. I just want to do this. We met a lady that saw us and lives here, and she came for dinner the other night. And that very day, she's been here, like, I think, 3 years. She's from the state of Canada, and she had been hearing "Get Out and Dance," and so she's telling us that night, that very day was for the first time she had. She said, "I can't take it anymore," and she went out to the beach and danced on the beach in the middle of the afternoon for 35 minutes and didn't give a shit about anybody.
Come on.
Um, I don't know how I got caught up on that tangent, um, but all I know what I was saying is that we've experienced that. We can experience it with ourselves, and a lot of us have, through the dark night of the soul, and obviously beyond. We've been able to do it with others at times. It's not been something we've been able to sustain, but I believe, at least in my situation, these couples are uh, entering, like, beyond PhD level here. I mean, the level of insight, opportunity, potential, and growth and experience is beyond anything I've ever dreamed of, which makes it very easy for me as the days go by to be able to say, I mean, I'm married to a beautiful woman in all ways. I mean, I'm a man. I chase her around like a teenager. But I'm trying to make a point. The point is that everything has its time and place. If you're going to run around like a teenager and do what you think is as a man, well, you're going to miss all the other parts in between, which really build to a greater culmination or climax. So if you look at that as a metaphor for everything, and that's why I think that word present is probably getting back to the subject of the masculine. And again, it's very hard to make statements because it creates a differentiation, and we no longer live in that world.
Mm.
When I see Morgan, I see a soul. And it's the first one and closest one I can see myself, right? So I know that this is what we're meant to do, is to grow this. And I think that's the territory we're in now. But yeah, I think it's going back to what I was going to say, and I pre-qualified it, was that the masculine energy in all of us wasn't present. Okay. You might even say the feminine energy was hyper present because they had the higher sensitivities. So they're like the super empath, and the masculines like, in a polar different place, polarity. But I would say, and in my personal experience as a man, as present as I have been in my life, and know that I have been, and can be honest about it, there were many things that I shared with other masculine energies, I would say, that were unknown, and it works the other way too, because that's the whole point. Again, we were talking about this the last couple of nights, and it was about that having that life review and form.
Mm.
People have a near-death experience, out-of-body experience. Many of us have. You get over there, and one of the things that you get is you're able to feel others, which is really you, from your own words and actions, right? But to have that in real time in physical form, that's the kind of stuff that she's been pulling through the last 2 or 3 nights, which has been, if you have that coding and that awareness, a bunch of stuff just starts dropping. Like it's not even there. Things aren't even said. You know what I mean? Because there's full empathy both ways, which is possible because there's an openness. There's an embracement of it, rather than sticking to our old prejudices and biases and that type of thing.
Mm.
I got lost here.
Wow. I wanted to just ask you, there's two things I wanted to ask you, but I'll just go with that first one was, when you talk about, well, the first thing we talked about, was when we went into a space. I wanted to ask you, like, when you went into a space and, things got loud, whatever the language I used, whatever happened with you, were there, were there signs that you ignored, like, leading up to that? Like, because this happened very quick for us. And then this had to come to fruition for you to see what was there, or is it like just happening, like you're just finding yourself in a space and then it's like, okay, right away I know this is not for us, whatever it is. Is there a build up to it, or was
Well,
it?
okay. So okay. So I totally get what you're saying. It's a very good question. And we have experienced this. Like I said, we were just talking about this, and this is happening to us all the time. We'll immediately walk into a situation when, where do you see the connection, right? Like it's really close by. Um, so we can say, this is me talking. Okay, we can say whatever we want. We can download whatever we want. It's all code. It's all information. Experience, but the teacher is the experience itself. We talk about these loops that come around and again and again and again. So I think in terms of what you're talking about and the experience that you just had, again, we had we had Morgan and I had a history individually and together when we traveled of these types of
A loop.
presentations of energy, which I would just equate to imbalanced energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your viewpoint is that you're illuminating more than they are and they're being shrouded in the dark or what, it doesn't even matter. The whole point is it's imbalance. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So we've had, a lot of experience there to use this specific type of example. So we had some situations where um, um, we recognized the imbalance. We didn't encourage it. We stayed open, and the energy kind of speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that's a bit ambiguous, but I don't want to get into like personal,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of
I get
things
it.
with
I
other
get it.
people.
Totally.
But I think the bottom line is that you know there's really no choice here from my mind. It's fun trying to figure it out. Ascension's fun. There's so many things that can be debated, so many narratives. My focus more and more every day since since even Canada has been to, yeah, I can participate in all that stuff, but I really want to participate in life. I want to, and we're human, and we all need our space and this and that, and whatever the case is, I take walks. There's just, but to be in that space with her. Well, what does that represent? That represents the masculine, the feminine, the golden child energy, the playground, the field that's been prepared for the births, right? I mean, it's to me, it's like this morning. I woke up this morning, and I live a 5 minute walk from the beach, and I woke up this morning and I had and I got up, said hi to Morgan. I was going to go for a walk, uh, and it's really meditative for me. I get information and I'm able to. But I woke up this morning. I walked out the door and I started having which isn't real common for me at this point. I started to have a loop, a human loop, come in,
Mm.
talking, nah, 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 nah. And then my response, was, I'm going to have to express this, to the parties involved, and and I was just like, and then all of a sudden, as I was walking through the town, and I'm seeing this vast contrast of what I've been used to, what you've been used to. It's like a like a fisherman town or whatever you call
Ah,
it.
yeah.
There was, people making tacos, people shucking oysters. There was exchanges of, I could see it and feel it. And I came back, and I sat on the beach at a table, had a coffee, had an egg and a half a piece of toast, and chilled out, and took in what I was looking at. Oh my God, I'm sitting on a beach in Puerto Vallarta in Bahia de Banderas Bay, which is supposed to be holy and healing water. And I'm starting to believe it. And just watching life,
Mm.
like don't forget, So for me, uh, my development, you might say, in terms of what you're pursuing with the masculine is to learn more of that feminine, of that mother's, the empty space, the 99%, to how can I become familiar. And it may work the other way around, with women. I don't know. You'll have to get someone to do a show on that. I don't know. But how can I become familiar with the way things are? What are the materials? What are the energies I can build with in this environment? How can I do that if I stay, in the operation mode of the old man? And to me, it's the $1 million question. How do you unionize your masculine and feminine? I mean, I actually think a lot of us have done it both before we got here and while we've been here, but we just don't realize the extent that we've done it to.
Mm.
But I really feel like it comes from because people talk about it over the years, and you got to embody it, right? Well, I think that's taken on a deeper and deeper meaning far beyond anything anybody thought and the
Mm,
pretty words they spoke. So for me, it's kind of cool too because we were told this in 2017 when she came in and Solargy exploded. You know, that's when the show really became a show, and uh, we were there and we had a I won't get into it, but we had a really cool experience. She brought in and Solargy came in, but the message was, is, and will be the same, and it was be together, love each other, and broadcast. And that whole thing, like everything else, has been an evolution. So I realize now for myself that those moments that we have, be it sharing a cup of tea, being, laying down, whatever the case is, uh, that's broadcasting.
mm,
That's
yeah,
being transmitted into the earth, and that's not bullshit. And that's going to go a lot for, and all you got to do, it's going to go a lot further than what we've been utilizing. Not taking anything away from this or what I've done for so many years, uh, because you can look at the platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, X, etc., and they're not holding the same weight that they were.
yeah,
There's a there is another something coming out that is the, I guess you would say, the physical manifestation of that which I've been referring to as the third energy, the golden child, the result of these unions as these interactions of harmony and balance, and be they little things or big things or whatever, that's coming through.
mm,
And I don't know what that is.
mm.
I really don't.
I love that. I love that idea that we are always broadcasting. Before we thought it had to look a certain way or we had to have a certain outlet for that, but we are broadcasting energetically all of the time. I know in you're not in the States now, but when all this stuff like politics and all that stuff, I very rarely see any of it. But when it comes up, that energy, always get this idea, this vote, people feel like they're voting for something. And I was always getting like, we're vibrationally voting all of the time. We're always voting, and that's so what we're broadcasting in every moment is the vote
Yep.
that we are casting for the reality that we're experiencing with another, within ourselves. And I love the way you shared that. I want to just go to the second part of that question then, because I think it ties into that. Um, is that before there have been a lot of talk of like kind of karmic energy, or what is that, what part of me is being shown here, or like digging into the details of why is this appearing, like I'm coming into this slip, why is this appearing, it's because of this, it's reflecting me. And more we're seeing, like very much like you said, that getting into any story of that kind is completely futile. I believe it was always futile, but we had to go through this idea of, this karmic, this, causes and effects, and all of this part is showing this of me. But the second that we drop into that discordant energy, we're broadcasting then on that frequency, we're broadcasting that field. And it's just like you said, we're just being called to step back, step out, don't get involved, don't feed it, don't broadcast, don't join and amplify that frequency and vibration. And I think you really touched on, but I want to see, like, to ask you, because you were able to walk away that moment. Let's say you took a step, you went coffee on the beach. What happens when you're in a space where it's not so easy to just to step away? Have you had that? Let's say it's a circumstance where you're in a field where, I suppose you always can, but I've been in experiences recently where it's like, okay, I have to be here in this. It's not just as easy. Have you had those experiences? And if you have, how have you dealt with it? Have you been able to just like step out? I think it was a different experience in the town. You can step onto the beach, you can move away. But are
Yeah.
there instances where you've had to like sit in it?
Yeah.
That's fun.
so, so I, again, it's there's the Trinity grows by the way it flows. So in specific in specific situations. I can say for what Morgan and I have experienced. I mean, individually and together since the last 3 or 4 months, whatever it's been, has there's not much of that. I think people can relate to things might come in and they come and go pretty quick. You might feel the intensity and some old emotion, stuff like that. But also overall, so if we're going to talk about it, if I talk about it on a personal level, okay, uh, I don't want to get caught up in the story, but to make a point of what you're talking about, yeah, for me, over the last 3 or 4 years, I do think these COVID years were extremely important. You know, in the sense of really the self awareness and therefore the collective awareness really expanding. But it was also a shitload of work. Now, during the bulk of this time, her and I aren't living in the same house, so that was a real evolution for me as a man, as a soul, as a human being. Um, to in the context of what you're talking about, I had to find my own space. Uh, I had to, in retrospect, or another way to explain it, I think more definitively is that's my feminine. My feminine was as unknown to me as it was in the general field of the patriarchal, right? I mean, obviously, if the Dalai Lama is a man and every pope is a man and every, you know what I mean? Come on, it is what it is. So that, um, that heart opening, that um, experience and acceptance of my heartache and sadness, uh, you know, re, you know, whatever that is, right? Um, yeah, I had and maybe this morning's, nothing was going on here. I just woke up and I had something on my mind, and and I went and did what I had to do. But yeah, I think now when I have to be in a situation, I go back to, for instance, the second Soldier Fest. I got thrown in jail, for something that was totally ludicrous, off the wall. Right? I'm 7 days in there. I can do
Jeez,
that.
my God, I thought it was only a day or a couple days. Right. Wow.
No,
Okay.
it's 7 days. Well, the thing is, I can do that. That's a part of the old masculine. Oh, I say the old masculine. That's a part of my soul that was conscious and went through the old.
Mm,
That part that can suck it up, find that balance under any circumstances. But by the same token, uh, finding myself in that dramatically less and less and less as time goes on. And I think the root of that is um, it's me. I can't change anything out here. I can change me,
yeah.
and I can't change me really if I can't look at a different perspective. And going back to the front part of this conversation having to do with that mutual awareness, the life review and form, and what you do with that code. Um, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I think I think when you really get down to it, be it whoever it is, that um, when and when you can look at these things, let's just say the disruptions or imbalanced situations, and you can really look at them because you can't fake it. You can't fake it,
No.
and you can look at them and see the gold. You know, uh, and if you're really blessed, and when we all get to this point, I'm trying to be careful here. You have that information closer to the point of it happening. Like you just had a situation, you made a choice, and the information came in like right after. Oh shit.
Yeah.
We just had a situation that, well, really more than one, where the information came in with it. So we were able to, in one situation, we actually had a commitment and then went back and said, listen, we can't do this.
Hmm.
Now, what were we really saying? We were saying this is not good for you. It's not good for us. It's not good. And, and there was no human, you know, old human stuff that came from that. It was a good example of the developing mutual respect people have for each other in the space that's allotted to them. And I think that is probably the most important thing, to go back to your question, is there's nothing wrong at all with any of us at any time in regard to anything. It's my opinion, to find your solitude. You don't need to make excuses. None of us do. That's our strength. We're self-sourcing. That's what we're all doing, and that's what we can do for each other. And getting back to the broadcasting element that I referred to, that has always been there for us. But think about that metaphorically. Be together. You could speak in terms of your own person. Love each other. You could speak in terms of your own person, and broadcast. And the reality is, like you said earlier, you are broadcasting, but there's something about transmitting the frequency, and this kind of goes back to your question too. The frequency that we send out is not just going out, right? It works both ways. So we are becoming more conscious, getting out of our head more. And to me, I look at these things. I want to put a post on Facebook and say, but people wouldn't get it. I shouldn't say that. That's judgmental. Who's leading from the heart? Because this political thing is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's totally ridiculous. But
Yeah.
so my point is, again, I'm trying not to get judgmental, but who is Trump leading from the heart? Is Harris leading from the heart? And the reason I wouldn't put that up is because people would be like, yeah, she is, he is, or
Pick a
that's
side.
not the point.
Yeah.
Maybe they're both human beings. Maybe the whole point is that am I seeing from the heart? Am I speaking from the heart right now when I made that reference? But and you can call the I would say the feminine part of me is located in my heart, and always has been since I was a little boy. And I might have called it Mother Mary when I was a little boy. Certain something that feels there. The masculine, very corporal. The mind, the strength, the power, the creating. But we can explain these things a lot of ways, and I don't have a lot to say in regard to the programs that we had as men, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would probably say a couple of things, like, if you're really serious, because it's a colossal thing, but it's not. There's a lot of things that need to be cleared, and one of those things is very obvious, would be in terms of sexual distortion. So I would encourage any man, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether whatever, celibacy. Celibacy is like fasting. Retention would be another thing. Semen retention. There is a new atmosphere. It's building in all parts of our life. It is most experienced, potentially most powerful, most creative, most whatever, and everything really, in pure intimacy. So, they all kind of relate to each other. And like I said, chicken or the egg. But if you are choice by choice, interaction by interaction, leading from the heart, and this isn't just cliche or adage, which really means allowing that feminine energy within yourself and otherwise to be seen, because you can learn from it. And the last thing I would say on that, and there's so many different examples we can have, but we all know they don't call it men's intuition. Now, that may be a negative connotation towards someone in male form, but the point is, our feminine is in the higher realms. Our masculine is in, and equally as important, in the organic realms. Uh, we have been walking around in an environment that's made of boxes and straight lines and sharp edges. Uh, and as Jordan Maxwell and so many other people that have done research and all that over the years will tell you, it's there. You know, it's been there to imprint upon us. There's something behind it. There's something that holds all this space. There's something that contains it all, and it's reemerging, and it's uh, quite challenging, I believe, to your typical stereotypical masculine man, given all the I'm in Mexico. I know because it's my heritage. It's a huge masculine machismo culture, but I see a lot of good energy out here, um, and uh, and I think like with a lot of things that are being put out into the old mainstream media and the internet, because don't kid yourself, because most of that's coming from the same elements that controlled the press and TV and all that for all these years. But what's put out there is we're all finding out, and the false flag frequency is falling away, is that that's a very minor part,
Mm.
right? There's a huge part out there. You might say most people are good people. Most people just want to be happy. But there's this, like David Icke says. David Icke says, you can fit all those people. Think of energy. You can fit all those people into one room,
Mhm.
and they're projecting all of that. But we're no longer participating, and I really feel that um, that's what will give us more ease and grace and evolve this to this innate direction uh, that we're all onto, is to let this feminine energy be seen, experience it, learn from it, and as a masculine, you wake up the next day and you're like, okay, let's start over.
Yeah.
In a good way though. It's almost like you ever see the movie? How we
Groundhog Day.
watched one last Groundhog Day. Yeah,
Yeah.
you ever see Groundhog Day? Yeah. So we watched a movie last night called About Time. It was similar to that,
Mm.
but Groundhog Day would be a better example. And it's funny, but I mean, the point is that that's how I feel. So you wake up and you go, and it's kind of a non-judgmental thing, because I'm sure the feminine too, but the masculine energy has had the hell beat out of them. Like the warped sexual distortion itself is the purest indicator, because what were we looking for? Another victory, another conquer, a release. I mean, a getaway. I mean, it was so many things. It's so um, I just that's how I feel. That's it. So what I'm saying is, I wake up to every day. It seems like more, well, it is, and it's like non-judgmentally, I can. What is it? I'm going to find out today. Uh, and it's kind of a natural thing, like my impulses, I don't know, it's like everything, there's a greater awareness. So I'm sort of like, if this is what I'm here for, then how can I uh, how can I potentialize this? Where do I start? And often, many of the days up until the first of this month had been, I don't know what the fuck to do. I don't know what to do. So you just take that step back, and I do think there's a lot of that going on right now, which makes sense, because if we're releasing all that, like an inhale, like an exhale, releasing all that masculine, and we're bringing, it's like the space in between. So that element of pause and don't do anything, I think is part of what and the reason for that is that is the feminine. Like if you hurry up and make this decision and you try to do all this, you're not going to see what's being shown to you.
Mm.
And we're kind of experiencing that through where we went the first uh, couple of months, and then to here, and now we're days away of, we don't know where we're going, but we've had these things come into our space organically, hey, we've got this over here, we got this over here, and we're like going, okay, it's going to show itself. So how can that ever happen if we don't allow, if we don't take the time to see it? And I'm convinced that maybe it's not a great analogy, but it works for me. Is you know um, how can you see what she offers if you don't take the time to see, because you're so wrapped up in the conveyor belt of life? And although, I think we've all made great progress, but getting back to the masculine, uh, it's been instilled in us to get up and go. And so, on a personal level, to be able to step away after this third Soulgy Fest and whatever number of shows and years and all that, it was the death of me. And I welcome it. I honestly do. I welcome it. I I would not. I don't think Soulgy is a consciousness. It'll go on forever. I see it every day. I'm not attached to it. I'm proud to be a part of it. Have been a part of it. Whatever. But uh, I went through a real death there, and when you go through a real death, a lot of things come up, and blessed to have a partner that we are able to hold space for each other. But again, back to your thing about always transmitting, always broadcasting. What greater contribution to give to the collective and to your partner and to yourself than to be transparent? And I think that force of the feminine that is uh, that is coming into our vision in the entire atmosphere is a direct relationship there to the masculine's I want to say transparency. Cut to the chase. I mean, it's it is what it is, and we need to stop. Let's just get out of it. Get out of the the old stories and well, we went through it. We did. All right. Um, but the last thing I would say, really, the last thing is that I've always understood, not that I was perfect about it, but for 12, 14 years, I've always understood that if I had the inspiration, which really comes from her, right? And in my life, Morgan, but it's really that energy they call Sophia, the mother, whatever. You take that inspiration and you express it to the best of your ability. Uh, and that's to me, it has always had some kind of healing effect and aligning effect in me. Maybe not to the nth degree or whatever. And I had to do shadow work and this and that and all the things that we deal with. But what I do see now is that not, oh, I'm going to get off the show and go do it right now. Rah rah rah. Let's go. There is this building, this energy that's building within me, and I felt it in my body over the last couple of weeks. It's an explosion. Morgan and I have had some incredible activations at the same time through these lower chakras into the heart and to the crown. But at a masculine level, or at least for myself, there's this almost like a vibrational ball of energy in my root and sacral and solar and primarily up into my heart. It'll go up into my throat sometimes, but up and down, and I can feel that there's a creativity that will come out, and that's not just me. So, but it's not in a rush. It's done in equilibrium, and I think the thing that you brought up about, and which Morgan brings up too, about just wait. You don't need to do anything yet. Just wait, right? Uh,
Man.
I'll tell you this funny final story real quick. As a perfect example of this. So I got here at like 10 minutes to midnight. I think it was on a Friday night, and of course we hadn't seen each other. I mean, we hadn't laid in the same bed. So, not to, I think we were so exhausted with everything, we just wrapped our arms around each other and fell asleep. So uh, it was a huge event. So that next night, somebody reached out to us, a gentleman here. We went and had dinner with him, went to his place, and we come back and we're in a taxi, and it's, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. And long story short, I left my wallet in the taxi. So I go upstairs. We go upstairs. I'm freaking out. I'm in Mexico for the first night. My cards are in there. I had some cash in there. My ID's in there. Everything's in there. And I'm like, holy shit, I've got to go. I'm going to run to the ATM and get some money out so we can have some cash. And I'm going to cancel the card. Then I'll cancel the card. And she's like, just wait. Just wait here. Just let's give it 5 minutes. And I think I lasted about 3.5 minutes. Right. So I don't have a car, so it's about 4 or 5 blocks, and it's at night, but it's freaking, the humidity at that time here was like raining every day. The heat would come out. I mean, it was horrendous. I'm 62. I'm running down to the ATM. I go to two ATMs. The first one won't do a transaction. I go to the second one. It eats my card. Okay. So I hang out there for a bit. I get the card back, and then she calls me, and she was in an upstairs studio, and the taxi driver had come back. But because of the way the thing was set up, I took the keys. She couldn't get out of the apartment to go downstairs, and this guy's speaking Spanish to her, and she can't understand. She's doing charades and such. And what had happened was this young mother with a baby in her arms was the next ride and saw the wallet, and she called me, and I'm running back about to die and drenched in sweat, and so the ending was the wallet got, we got the wallet back. But the point was, I thought it's a funny story, but it's a good example of what you brought up a couple of times, which uh, there really is a huge benefit now, I think, to the pause. And I see that pause as kind of symbolic of what we're doing, like releasing that distorted, whatever you want to call it. You can look at it as masculine and feminine, and really taking in our feminine energy, because it's really it's really the palette we paint from, in my opinion. Um, and whether I'm speaking as a man or a soul or whatever the case is, but to me, this is code that we haven't consciously embodied, certainly not to the point of all the programs and conditions and distortions and distractions we have. So the only way to gain uh, new coding is to open up to that, and then when you have two or more, then things can really exponentialize at that point. Um, but yeah, so Martin, it's been there's a lot. I know I had a lot to say, but the truth is I don't have a lot to say. uh, you know, we're all the same. This is a hell of a journey we all chose. For me, I'm really, um, I guess, and I remember. Let me say it this way so I don't come off wrong. I remember Franco talking about a lot. He would talk about how these things would fall away. We wouldn't be able to go on Facebook. We wouldn't be able to watch YouTube. I think a lot of this goes to the expanded awareness that we're having and we will have in terms of understanding. It's not just going to be another person. We run into another person, and we have the coding of a life review and the mutuality of us to function together, and therefore a lot of things fall away. But I think it's also anything that carries consciousness, a YouTube, a Facebook, whatever it may be. But I'm finding that it's hard to look at what I've looked at all these years, and I'm really looking for something new. But I keep picking my phone up and I go, I'm gonna go 10 more. It's nothing, 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 nothing. Uh, but then having the realization that, well, you're not going to see anything new until you make something new.
Mm,
There's
yes.
not going to be anything. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. And I know Morgan talks about it, that she's read a couple of things that other people have come into the same thing, which is that, what is it, October, November, and December is the period, as they would put it, getting used to how it works, right? And for me, I'm really saying the same thing to you, is that how can I know something and build in union or communion, with that something, that consciousness, that, without knowing it. It's like, I used to build houses, and you know and you go to a book and you learn the code, and you learn about everything, and you design it and you build it. But there's no books here. There's that almost like an amniotic, mother's wombs plasma, that I believe a lot of us have entered through the work that we've done on ourselves, and now we are going to be creating, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Um, and I feel like that's the only way we're going to be able to, or for me, that I want to rephrase that. That's the way I see it. I don't have the answer. I'm able to talk with Morgan about it. We talk about things, but it's every day another revelation, and another insight. And I've noticed too that, we get huge downloads, activations, you know, comprehensive code exchange. We have incredible things happen. We always have. And then there's kind of a little integration, because this light, so to speak, that's coming in, whatever you want to call it, it's a lot. I think it's a lot for all of us, and we shouldn't forget that either. Um, I mean, it would benefit us not to forget that, because so much of our pain and suffering, really, maybe all of it, has been through judging others and judging ourselves, right? So that element leaves us as this greater intelligence becomes a beehive kind of a network, and it grows and it flows the same way, and that's through stepping in there with somebody, and having that experience openly, with the coding from prior experiences of when to say, no, I don't think I'm going to go over there, and not to carry any guilt or shame or judgment toward the other or anything about it. Just say, you know what, that's a part of the pool I don't really want to swim in right now. That may change one day, but this doesn't feel right, or whatever, however you want to explain it. But I feel like this grows through. Um, we're not going to, sit on the sidelines, but we're not going to come out overly aggressive in the old paradigm fashion and charge the hill. We're going to come out and take these steps, and each step is with the intention of equally serving or equally expanding myself, the other, and the collective. The mother, the child, the golden father, the golden child, or whatever that triad that you want to identify with. And we're writing the code every time we do it. This is it. This is the new code. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Beautiful, brother. Brother, how's your time? Because there's something really calling me. How are you? We're already at an hour and a half. Can't even believe it.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm
You're
okay.
okay?
Yeah, I
Uh,
probably won't do anything like this again for a while.
well,
Yeah,
thank
no,
you, thank you,
I know
thank you for
I'm
being here
good.
with us. Because I want to say, like, over the years when we've talked, it's always been so activating for me. There's always been some things have been going on, and it's no different today. And I want to expose something in like transparency about myself that's coming up, because I feel it's really a
Hmm.
time and it's a powerful space for it, if I can. Um, so many of the things that you shared, like you and Morgan experience, like is literally nearly word for word of the things that we go through. And I know we've talked about that before we came together at the same time. But there's one where you were mentioning where there's not a lot of it. You get into these spaces, but it's not a lot. And it's the same for me, but there's one thing that keeps coming back, and I know I've got so much work to do on it. And that is conflict. whenever this is what the example that you mentioned the other like before about having a, what way did you say it, like an agreement, or what was it you said?
Yeah,
um
yeah,
like it wasn't that wasn't the word, but that idea, you had an agreement and then it was like you had to change. And for me it's this thing with conflict, and even saying the words, like I've got so much work to do in this, because I can come from the space where we're speaking from so much, but where I've still got this huge amount of work is when it comes to conflict. It comes to energetic conflict, verbal conflict. It's very rare that it's going to be something physical. um, but energetically, that's something where I can go from out here to, like, I spent a month back in Ireland, in my parents' house this summer with my wife and son. You know, it says, was it Ram Dass says, you think you're so enlightened, go spend a week. He said, I think he said, go spend a week with your parents. Well, I went full out for a month, and yeah, this energy of, it's like in Northern Ireland, and then, like, the energy of conflict there, that's still there. And I just have this continuous thing, and I just want to expose it here in this space, because I know it's a powerful space that I'm just so ready, and I'm working on it. And tomorrow I'm going to do some work with a lot of men around this, um, on me. But I just want to expose it here and just be completely transparent about it, and just like empty it out in this empty space where, like, because when it comes to that, I just revert. I revert into fight, or generally not flight, fight or freeze. I'm frozen, or I'm fighting. Like, and it's explosive. It's like the other day, like insane, like the explosion of the fight energy. And I just want to expose it here and just full transparency, and just let it be out here, and and that that sacred womb of the feminine that can just draw everything up into purity, because I'm I'm done with it. I am I have to be done with this. I have to be done with this, because yeah. But I just want to expose it here, because I feel this is a space where it can be, yeah,
yeah.
opened.
No, I feel you, man. And I think that's a big part of deprogramming. So it's so hard to refer to things without what prejudicial connotations to it. You know, the words are really important. But you know, I don't know. I really I totally relate to what you're saying. Um, whether it's expressed or not, that's a masculine distortion, one way or the other, that was imprinted in all of us. Patriarchal distortion. So you're going to see it in the men. Why? Because we're the soldiers, you know, literally, figuratively, so on and so on. But but you know, I think a big benefit of this side of it is that the third energy is very cooperative. Um, being present is very cooperative, and it can. Uh, being in that space without explanation or expectation, without planning, when you find yourself in that space, be it with your wife, with your kid, with both of them, with me, with whoever, just sitting in it and acknowledging it itself brings a tremendous amount of alignment. And what I'm really trying to say is that the third energy is very cooperative. And I think there's an obvious simplification that's occurring as we evolve, all of us. You know, I'm married to the 0 point queen, right? We all kind of, I think we all understand 0 point as a definition. It's not hard to understand. You remove both sides, or you become both sides, I would say. Which again, what is that? That's empathy. That's the life review and form. So you understand the other side, or if you're looking at two sides, you understand both sides. You know, whatever. But to get there takes conscious effort. And this is embodiment. And that's why the power of like, say, what I was referring to earlier, the power of the core of a pure physical, intimate relationship, say, like me and Morgan, because it's all physical and it requires you to be transparent and naked, you know? So when it comes to what you're bringing up, which I think is a big thing for men, uh, it it's really I can only look at it that way. Uh, in that, um, I'm not, I'm seeing the other side as something other than myself. Now I know that sounds, oh, that's, how do you do that? Well, how do you do that? You zero, there's methods to it. I don't have the answer for each and every person, as they don't have it for me. But what I will say is that uh, those, from a man's perspective, those two sides, whether you're on one or observing, it's more likely you're one on one or the other. It is a distorted masculine against distorted masculine. I
Yeah.
will say that. And I had a seizure in January of 20 this year, I think 24. I can't even put months together. Yeah, I hadn't had one in 10 or 12 years. I had a lot of them from 15 to 50,
Mm.
and that was the second time that I was remained in consciousness in 150, 200 seizures in my life. It was only the second time I ever remained conscious. And what it was I was thrown into this point of observation where there was two energies that were coming together like fucking tidal waves, and I saw them, and they were all masculine. It was
Mm.
masculine both sides. And I don't know, something must have been in the air at that time, or I saw a vision or whatever. I don't know, but uh, there was just this understanding for myself that, hey, man, we're fighting ourselves here. You know what I mean? We're fighting ourselves here. And it just kind of washed away. But that's an easy proposition to hear a story and go, oh, okay, well, everything's fine now. No, what I'm trying to say is that uh, I think there is a things are offered in greater simplicity now, in terms of the man's experience because of the level of code and the expansion of the consciousness that's been generated, and we've seen the evidence of this by the feminine. Okay, all these years that we're able to move a little bit more rapidly, and I think zero pointing is that you mentioned the mother's heart when you go into that type of space, but is actually to understand, for me, that she's on both sides here. It is all her, right? So if I often in my own practice with myself over the years, use the words narcissist and empath, for my self talk, for my instruction of self, and always quick to take on this narcissist, because it it it's like the loudest thing to me in terms of not owning something, not seeing the God in the other, the mother goddess in the other. Uh, and that's because it's usually because I'm sensitive. I'm more awake. I'm more open. We all go through this. You hear people every day saying those people aren't awake or whatever the case is. So for me, that's really it. Now I've had the luxury of dealing with, ironically, some serious sexual distortion from the masculine in my lineage, to the point that really hit close to home, about as close as you can get. All right, and and I was able to step into those shoes and accept, revere, avow uh, this prominent masculine and influential masculine in my life, and accept and see, uh, so to speak, where they were coming from. Uh, so I think that it's available for men to put down their armor and their weapons and their belief systems and their nationalism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and say, we're just doing this to ourselves. Let's stop this now. Now, that's both an internal discussion and a discussion with a brother. Because why are we doing this? It's kind of like, not to bring up anything political, but it's kind of like, go stand 6 feet away from each other, or any other thing that came out of the COVID mandates. you start to question, why am I doing this? Well, if what you're doing is beating the living hell and killing the masculine in you in those physical encounters, then obviously you're doing it to yourself. There's a lot of hate. The reason for that rage and that anger that you're referring to, that flipping of the switch, what we know so well, because we had to go into that mode like that
Mm.
constantly. You didn't have a chance to go, oh, wait a minute, let me tell you about my feelings. No, boom. You either kill or be killed. So the reason I feel anyway, and a lot of this I worked out in those first 2 years on the street, when 2012, uh, is because of the hatred. I'll just use that word, and I don't like that word. I never have. I don't hate anything, but let's say prejudice, bias that could have uh, the potential of true hatred uh, towards another man. And we're speaking men here right now, right? Uh, you're going to talk to a men's group and so on. Uh, we really hated ourselves because it was all based on that competition comparison. Is your dick bigger than mine? That whole mentality. And if you know what I mean, so it's a real big thing for men. There's a lot of false persona and false bravado, and it's not a who do they think they are kind of thing. It's an unconscious thing, and we're coming into it consciously. And I really feel that our evolution has been and will accelerate quicker because of the feminine setting the stage all these years. And but this is I don't have the answers, Martin. I just am sharing some of the methods or some of the ways I've looked at it. But I can tell you this: you cannot fake it. None of this can be faked. And if the man over these, is going to find the masculine is going to find its rebirthed creativity, its inspirational expressions to the mother and the lover that she is, right? Yeah, all that shit's got to go away. Like, absolutely. No, I'm telling you, 100%. Look, if you just use me as an example, uh, Sology was in my mind the expression of Morgan and I, right? It's obvious. It's the Trinity, right? It was, and again, this is in the old paradigm. This is up to 2023. So in the linear world, it represented a lot of things. We know energetically, we can talk about it all day long, whatever. But on the surface, it was also through contributions and endless gratitude and blessings for everyone that ever support and in all their ways supported Sology. It was also a livelihood. So to get to the end of the road and carve out the old and bring in the new, this is one man who just walked away from it all. Okay, and I've had people make comments to me, but and again, I don't know what will ever happen. Today, as I sit here with you, I'm inclined to think that I'll probably never do anything again with the Solo G brand or the Solo G label or whatever, and that could be wrong. But the point is, whatever it takes. There were elements of Todd within that um, creation that were from the old, obviously. How could any of us build from? Not to say that there wasn't an element of soul, not to say that there wasn't something that continues to live, but in order to expand on what's been, having to let go of all the constructs of the old. So, you know, if it's meant, be it one construct of it or the whole thing, and this is an example, it's not about, I'm just trying to give an example. Um, if it's meant to come with us, it will. Because this third energy is you can't enter the sacred space of this holy womb, this what we indescribable place that we find ourselves over and over again in 0 point and all that it brings, unless you've, unless you've uh, taken each step to get there. I mean, and there's certain things that aren't those things that were distorted and so on aren't going to be allowed. Or they're not. They just can't exist there.
Yeah.
It's like us getting this light and this solar flares, and we go, "Holy shit!" It knocks us off our square for a bit. But it's the same thing. It wouldn't make it. This is what we're doing. We're doing this in the physical body, so it's not just elementary stuff here. But in terms of the man, uh, every single thing. I don't care if you got a PhD. I don't care if you got $1 million in the bank. I don't care what you did in your career. I don't care what you did in your light worker career. If you really want, this is just Todd, okay? This Todd speaks to himself, right? If I really want to make an impact in this moment, and you only have the first chance one time, right? We go on forever, but to maximize things is to let all of that go. And it's happened somewhat organically. It's not happened harshly, for me. I have the value of a tremendous relationship that was able to facilitate me and uh, and bear with me. You know what I mean? But it's been and I'm serious about that. You know, to be able to be in an unknown space with a feminine in form, uh, and to find these new um, neural pathways and avenues and methods and material uh, is is incredible. And I can't speak for other men that aren't in, say, this type of relationship or whatever the case is. But what I can speak is to the energy, and I see the you know a lot of ways to explain things, and it may be a little harsh to explain it to men, but seriously, I don't care who you have been. The only thing I'm taking with me for the sake of this incarnation is my name. Okay, so I come out on the other side. I have my name. And when I say my name, I just mean as a point of reference. Not, oh, he used to do Sology or he's with Morgan. No, I have me, Todd. And then I'm blessed to come out of it and have my partner. And that creates a three. And then from there, we're starting to, like a lot of people, starting to interact and consciously have these exchanges in a whole new environment. Uh, but again, to bring it back around to what you're exploring and what I'm trying to offer on my end of it in the trajectory of what you're pursuing is that, yeah, it all has to go away. I'll not be surprised when the pendulum swings and the vast majority, not only of podcasts, I'll use that as an example, but of what is deemed as the popular podcast are women, are feminine energy, right? And this isn't even what we don't even know what that is because it hasn't been allowed to be seen. And without sounding like suppression and this and that, and we all know the narratives, it's simply stepping back, and here we go with the pause again, and let that breath come out. And let's see what it has. I can't build anything if I don't have anything to build from. Right? So I want to do my part. So that would be my thing, a more direct thing that I would like to dive into, not to cry in our beer and all that bullshit, but to actually say, dude, I say this to myself all the time. God's honest truth. Who the fuck you think you are to think that? You know what I mean? To think that, you can, this, uh, like I said, this third energy is very willing and cooperative, and it works if you step into it. And to have a partner to be able to do that is a huge advantage. And maybe that's just part of our role. But yeah, uh, because if you're in a situation like you're talking about, what is it that's actually pissing you off? I can promise you it has to do with comparison, competition. Uh, who are you or who am I to say what I? That's what happened this morning. I took a walk. It's a it's a further down ripple down the line. I'm going to say this to this person. I'm going to say this to that person. Like, and I'm thinking, then I'm out there in the mother's belly in front of the beach, with a coffee, and go, oh, sorry, that's not even that's old. That's not even real. Who am I again? Oh, I better get back because I'm going to be late to the to this video. But
So,
but no, I think that's a harsh thing to hear. I think it's easier to hear it now. But when I do, and I will say this: so when I go on social media, I still see a lot of the same old thing. And I'm not damning anybody. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just trying to say if the subject matter is a man that wants to evolve, I'm not an expert. I can only share my experience, but I can tell you this: there's nothing coming with us. I am not the same Todd I was in the first 8 years of my relationship with Morgan Lee.
hmm.
Um, I don't know who I am, but I know what love is. I can I have a built-in innate sense of the scent of the mother of whatever that is, and I'm here to express inspirationally, um, as I've done in the pattern of the past, but in this new atmosphere, and I know there's a lot of um, co-creation that goes along with this new math. If you want to put it in human terms, mano y mano, man to man, all of it goes. So I have no problem giving up my livelihood, no problem giving up Sology, no problem giving up dad. I know it's a bit different for someone like you. Not that I'm turning my back on anything, but these labels, they can't go. I'm Todd. I'm an aspect of you. I'm a fractal of the whole. You played this role in my life, or whatever that relationship is on the surface. Everybody's a soul. I want to swim in that water where I gravitate. My wife and I gravitate to those energies that come in. They come in, and it's smooth. It's a seamless kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be alone or not wanting to enter that space over there. It doesn't mean anything. There's no judgment there. Um, but the masculine energy, you could explain it so many different ways, and if you're going to do a men's group or something, I'm certainly open to being part of it. But, that one of the many ways that you can look at what we're talking about energetically, obviously always first, because that's really what it is, metaphorically, energetically, is, well, my phrase with myself, it's not just who the fuck you think you are, but shut the fuck up. That's probably the most common one is, but what I'm really saying is to myself is to my masculine, to that side of me, which is divine masculine with some conditioned male, you might say. I'm saying, shut the fuck up and here's what she has to say. We've been hearing all this over here. So what more is there that I haven't understood, or because I haven't seen? There's no judgment here. So I see that as a kind of a microcosm, and then but to your point, because I think that's a really big thing. The rage and the anger came in to because of our self hatred as a result of the projected um, uh, programming or the projected trauma. Okay, all right, that we got sold on and deeply embedded in us. Okay, so that's where it comes from. There's no reason. There's no no one to blame. There's nothing to blame. Get over it. Who do you think you are? I'm talking to myself, not you. Who do I think I am? You know, and it's work. We're down here doing work, and I think the feminine part of us was able. When I say the feminine part of us, I mean it's obvious. You look at these groups and like Soulgy, and yeah, the feminine in form came out and created this wave, you might say, and things became more visible, and it was a lot of work, and they did a lot of work and held a lot of space, and so that speaks to the feminine in the entire collective, that part of us that looks at the men warring on each side going, they're both my sons. What the hell is wrong with you? Right? So now you have this counter, I don't say counter force, but you have this co-creative force that is like my story, like we talked about when you asked that brilliant question, when did you, it sounded like you had a second awakening, but it died. I shouldn't even say died. I should say it's dying. Everything's got an ing. It's died. It's died. It's dying. It's still dying. It's dying more in this conversation as I open up about it with you. But what happens at the same time is a greater love for himself. Like, you know what? I can stand here without any of this. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like I'm going to jump on a mountain and scream and, oh, look who, that's the old, right? It's just simply going, you know what? That's as restricting and confining and limiting as all the other programs. That's what I say. I'm not knocking ascension. I'm not, knocking narratives. I'm just saying ascension can be a distraction as well,
Mm.
even a distortion. But yeah, it's a big subject. I think we've spent a lot of time as men talk in the recent years talking about the sexual distortion. I don't think that the conversations went very well, and I'll tell you why. Because the conversations were had from a point of judgment and belittlement, and I'm talking about men to men. I'm not talking even about the feminine. Uh, I went to AA meetings and NA meetings, and again, old paradigm, new paradigm. But it's a sob story. It's crying in the beer. It's false bravado. It's just bullshit. So again, everything has to be, uh, not has to be things. Just as patterns of conditioning and programming are coming up and showing themselves over and over until we, get louder and louder until we get it. Opportunities too. So I do see this new atmosphere, this post 2024, post COVID, the space we're in now. I do see that some of the same, uh, frequencies, feelings, are coming around, and they'll be made. Uh, they'll look similar, but they'll be made in a different way, and they'll be by far enhanced. And obviously, a huge part of this is the masculine.
Mm.
The masculine. Well, if we're going to allow her for our all intents and purposes, the smartest thing to do, the thing we haven't tried, we might put it that way, to we're going to shut up and sit back and let that environment, that landscape, that beauty, uh, anchor and flourish, then it would only make sense that the other side's going to come out and do the same thing. It's the pattern that we just had these last 12 years. So this, I think, is the time it's happening. And like Morgan talks about, getting used to it these last 3 months to the year, and that's a universal thing. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But our masculine part of us is a huge important role, and we might think, because of the way we're built, that we're going to be appraised or judged based on what we create. But I'm here to say that may be true one day. But the real thing that I'm looking at is my own energy that would restrict my own femininity and obviously that of my partner and that of the collective. It needs to be allowed to come out here. And if the pendulum swings a little bit over, I can promise you it's coming back to 0 point. That's why we're all here. But I can also promise you that it's not going to swing to the degree and extreme that it did on the other side. We've gone through something together. We're coming out of it now. And the strongest suit to me that Todd can play for himself, and I would say to a brother, is to allow that feminine energy to be seen. And the best way to do that is get the fuck out of the way, shut up, and observe. Because what were they doing all these years? Observing,
Mm.
gaining code, gaining information with reflection and contrast, and yet we're out here the doer, the doer, the doer. And this is not to badmouth anyone or anything or any role. I'm proud to be a man, and I'm proud to be a part of the team that went through the grind. We all went through this together. Now we're actually in a space of reaping the rewards, and that whole heaven on earth connotation is not bullshit. I don't care how many extraterrestrial species, this and that, all whatever. This is it right here. So it's a huge proposition, um, and coming from a doer mentality is most masculine and form can feel. I'm talking about masculine energy and form, regardless of your gender. You, you're going to build. You're going to build. You're going to build. And then you're going to kind of be like after the old paradigm after sex and go, was it okay for you? Right? That's the mentality and the fragility that we carry. To be able to go from doer, talker, you know, to that quiet, powerful chieftain strength who, and what's the first thing that happens? That it will allow this feminine to come out and create a new field of fertility, and then we pick our moments, you know. It's quality, not quantity. but
Oh man, so
but I
good.
think I think and I think what you're doing is a really good thing, and I'm happy to see. But you've always kind of been out there as a man. I mean, in terms of what you're willing to talk about and some of the things you shared, you have a strong feminine uh, energy. As far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I do think it's important to discuss these things beyond what these. I'm not knocking men's groups. What I'm saying is beyond the conversations we've had before
Yeah,
about porn,
but
about hey, let's kind of do this. Let's all say, you know what? I would say something as simple as a vow of celibacy. They have that. What is that thing Joe Rogan does? It's Sober October, I think.
hmm.
He does it with friends every year for a month. Just energetically, as an example, would be like celibacy. I don't care if you're in a relationship and you think you're a twin flame or whatever, but the energetics of that itself, like
Uh,
fasting,
yeah.
you know what I mean, on steroids, just just the and I can tell you from my own journey, just um, the things that come up as a result. You know what I mean? Like when you fast, you start to notice. Like when you fast, when I first did it in earnest in 21, I would notice myself. I'd be on the couch. I'd get up and go to the refrigerator and open it. I
Yeah,
thought, oh my god, I didn't realize. You know
automatic.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you learn, and the same goes with the celibacy uh, uh, approach. I mean, but I think it's a great thing to open the door and get past the crying and the crying in the beer and telling the war stories and get down to, you know what, man, I'm getting to know my feminine energy, man, and it's a little bit freaky. Um, it's weird, it's strange. I have feminine sensations. Uh, You know what I mean? Like, I thought I had a vagina at one point. I mean, it's I feel vulnerable. I feel like I need to say something, or I'm not being allowed to say something, or I got emotions coming in, and real shit. Real shit. because all that sexual distortion uh, is rooted in suppressed suppression of our feelings and our anger and our rage and our the whole kit and caboodle, you know. And I do too think that as time has gone on, you know, s- more often as time goes by, coming into the awareness about something brings immediate alignment. That's the kind of energy we're engaging in, and 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 I think our creativity as a whole will explode when we get to the other side, when it seems to be this 90-day period where the masculine energy really can step into what the unknown. um, that's when we really start to explode. And we go back to Franco's incredible insight. He said 2025 will be like nothing else. And then at the same time, Franco, horoscopes, Edgar Casey, Dolores Cannon, anyone else, that was a snapshot at the moment. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if we're the ones that are regulating the intensity and frequency of solar flares and Schumann resonance and this and that and the other thing, then you might say for so many words, the future's in our hands. You know, so there's no guarantee, and that's never going to go away.
Mm.
But yeah, yeah,
Wow, brother, absolutely beautiful. I just want to echo what you shared there. Like my deep gratitude for my partner, like has brought me through and continues to bring me through in ways like is just unbelievable and incredible, the support, and as that represents the wider feminine energy that's pulled us through and held us through, and you know, planted these seeds and created this environment for where we all are now. And it's beautiful, and like I'm just eternally grateful to her and that feminine energy within us all. And I just want to touch back on that one thing that I exposed, just to share, because in case there's someone else that has this experience, what I found with this last kick up the assets was that it was fear. For me, it was about fear. Those things that you mentioned, like the competition and the revenge and coming out after, was all based in this being afraid. I was afraid. I was afraid and
right,
fearing for the safety of my wife and my son. This is like the continuous pattern, and that instantaneous need to defend when you feel in fear. So like it
right,
really became clear to me this time. Like I thought, fear's nothing, death's nothing, whatever. No, years I've had years of this, and then I just seen this pattern. Like you're still afraid. You're afraid to be you're afraid to be a man. You're afraid to be a being on this earth. You're afraid, and it was a big kick up the assets this time, and that's why I wanted to really expose it and bring transparency to it here. So
part of the reason, and I think that the coding um, is everything's coming through differently. It doesn't work the way it used to. So as we're sitting here talking about this, I'm thinking about uh, the last couple of days. And Morgan and I are involved in a couple of organic natural triads with other people on the earth, right? Uh, and I'll tell you straight up, one of them is hung. And so it was either last night or the night before. We were having our own experiences and everything. And Morgan starts to verbalize it through, these conversations that we have. And she's talking about the end of self sabotage and sabotaging, right? And we've heard this before, right? At the same time, Hung's getting it through a very lucid dream, right? And we put the pieces together, and here you are talking about this incident that is, recurring, right? Where does it come from? What was it? I totally relate to what you're saying because I mean I have no fear walking around Mexico, but I got my wife with me, and it becomes a whole different thing. And I've had the same depression. No, I've thought to myself, why am I afraid? And
yeah,
I had to work on it. But what I was getting at is I feel that Morgan's come up with two words so far this month. Usually she'll come up with this is the theme, this is the theme. One is this self-sabotage thing, and the other is freedom. Okay. Uh, and so I think there's a strong possibility that the reason this came up as a primary point in this conversation is because it's reflective of what's in the collective. And it's not so much about what it is, the fear it is, or this or that. It's actually more about what do we do with it.
Mm.
And the first thing that, and again, back to the theme, the man, the masculine, so on. The first, that's where it starts. Okay. So if, for me anyway, once those things would happen to me, and it happened many, many, many times, and it happened many times on video on Soul Speaks 5D, um, was to go back to the point of ignition and to understand that this is a somatic, mental, emotional response that's so ingrained in this masculine journey, right? That we've got to the point now where we can see the forest for the trees because we're realizing that's all it is. It's the animal part of us, which is just as coveted and just as revered and just as part of this Trinity, body, mind, soul, whatever, that had the dominant uh, bandwidth.
Mm.
We're entering an equalized bandwidth, so it's still a part of it. It may turn into, instead of the interaction creating this somatic response, okay, first in thoughts and then words and actions, that may transform into, hey, Bill, we're not real comfortable with this. We appreciate what you've offered. It's not a fit for us. Wish you the very best. Shake hands, part company. It's really not. Um, it's really about what we do. Because another way to put it is, if something happens, where is that stemming from? Is it stemming from my past? Well, because it's happened before, and is it in my future? Because what's going to happen, and da 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 da. No, but present, I can say, oh, that's what that is. That's it doesn't matter what's coming at me. It's what here it is. Here's that feeling. Okay, wait a minute. How you doing? How you doing, pal? Hey man, I'm gonna give you a rest. You know what I mean? I love you. I love you. I'm gonna try something different.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of another thing that's happened in this new atmosphere is one way or the other, people saying and realizing you can't do the same thing you did before. Everything's got to be different. If you want it to be different, everything's got to be different, and everything we experienced and learned had an element of the, let's say, the inverted or inorganic matrix. Whatever the term is, we can now walk, through life, and even if we're wrong, right? At least it would make sense to try something we haven't tried, and it's got mother written all over it, right?
Yes, it
So,
does. I
so
I
I
did.
think, and so yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, well, the reason I said that to you is because part of the old process was identifying something. Let's talk about it. Let's explore it. Da, 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 like you said, it was fear. It was this with me. It was that. But part of the way it seems to work in the new is just to bring it up and talk about it. And as quick as that, it goes. It's settled. It's more of a sign of what's occurring. That's why I brought it up, because she was talking about this is really it. I mean, this is think about that. If you have something like that is gone, the self-sabotage, the speaking too quick, the acting too quick, these are all the same thing.
Yeah.
You're interfering with the flow. You're interfering. It's not being allowed to be seen. So now, uh, sometimes maybe, well, what I'm saying is that when things come up and they come up in this sequentiality and this synchronicity, uh, that maybe what we're doing is prophesizing in present time. Like, yeah, it's going to come up because it's up for everybody, kind of thing. But
Mm,
think about that. If that's cleared, the level of communication, this telepathy or beyond telepathy thing, it grows by leaps and bounds.
yeah,
You know.
for real. So I did get to the beautiful, calm conversation you had with Bill eventually, but I still had that explosion before. I had that explosion, where it was, and it's like it's that ability to create that space when I feel unsafe or I
Yeah.
don't feel safe, and I feel like it. That's where the work is still for me. And actually, this thing
Yeah.
I'm going to this weekend is so there's a day fully about healthy confrontation between men. So it's a part of a program that I'm going to for the first time. So it's very timely, but yeah, we did get there and it was amazing because normally that experience maybe would have went to a flight, would have went away and didn't get to that point, like the way you described the conversation with
Yeah.
Bill. We did get there, but the work is in that uh, trigger reaction and having the
Yeah.
ability to have that space, having that mother's womb, and like I am safe, and the ability to breathe
Yeah.
and get and not that reaction. That's where the work is
Look,
still for this one.
yeah. No, I totally get that, man. I mean, I think as men, it's a huge thing. This rooted anger, rage, etc. In the masculine, and again, what I see or what I would gravitate to, I think, because I was a big proponent for, I told Morgan for years, I want to be part of the men. I want to wake, men up and do whatever I can. And we did it. We did together. We did it. You and I. We others collaborations, but it was a different atmosphere. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'd like to. I would not be surprised, and I'm sure we'll see it. Is I do think it's important, just as the women have this language.
Yeah,
They speak to each other and they have this incredible language. I mean, it's fascinating,
yeah,
right?
that's big.
The men, the men in general haven't had that because it's all smoke and mirrors. So I
Yeah,
really feel like that, um, in what I would gravitate to personally would be something, and I don't have the script and I don't have the agenda, would be where the men are speaking from their feminine. Okay, like I'm talking about like root stuff. I'm talking about like stuff we never talked about. But to speak from our feminine side, and again, pendulum maybe goes too far, but we've already worn out the other side here. And anything that we involve ourselves in terms of having the old war stories and I hate to say it, but like victim consciousness, because that's a reality, because the fear, the victim consciousness,
yeah,
etc. That's the
one of the
root.
same.
Uh, yeah. So invite the feminine into your feminine, my feminine into this space, men and 6 or 7 other guys. What does that mean? Well, I don't fucking know. Let's find out. Have you ever felt this? Have you ever felt feminine? Have you ever I don't know. What do you think it is? And how do we learn? And again, I think there's a lot of power in that because if the intention is aligned, the third energy is there to help us.
Mm.
I mean, it's in a way it never has before. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited to see where you go with it and keep me informed. And I'm all ears and certainly open to any collaboration, be it private or public. Although I'm not too public these days.
You've served your time on that for sure. Oh, absolutely. And just to be clear, what I'm talking about this weekend, I'm not. It's not something that I'm facilitating. I'm going to
Yeah,
participate in something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I have to buy a gum shield. I just got an
A
email.
what?
I just got an email before this call we got on here. I need to go get a gum shield. You know, a
What the
gum
hell
shield.
is that?
You know what boxers put on when they go on, when they're going on. So there's actual real
Oh, so you're actually going to hit each other?
boxing gloves, and it's like real, but it's in like an aligned way. It's called Sacred Sons. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there it's Sacred
I
Sons.
think. Wow, that's wild.
So yeah,
So
I only find that out
see that
before.
makes me
So you can imagine what
see
happened then.
that makes yeah. And see, I think another thing too that, and I get a lot of this from Morgan, is that the identifying the one thing and then finding what's the opposite of that.
Mm,
And so as you're telling me this, I'm thinking, wow. So what if that's one, right? And then you go to the opposite side. And so what if you got, say, you got a dozen men there, and
mm,
say you the opposite is you all stand in a circle holding hands,
yeah.
right? And then you turn to each other, and the two are looking at each other in the eyes. And then you know what I mean? Like this is the territory I think that we're headed into,
Mm,
um, because we're gonna wear out any part, any influence and part of the old masculine, the modalities, the stories, the everything. And I think this is you know, I like that pendulum um, metaphor, you know, analogy. Yeah. So, and then of course, Martin, you know this. I mean, your intention. Okay, and this is, I think, a good thing for any of us men to remember too. Is first of all, you're taking the initiative. Second of all, you're stepping into somebody else's arena. So you're already giving up control. See,
complete.
so that's, you know, you look at the energetics of it. That's a very, and then you've got other people doing the same thing, and that's emerging. That's a potential multiple trinity. You know, you may run into somebody there that you click with, and the third energy booms, and you know what I mean. And that's contagious, and that's broadcasting even to those people beyond the field that you're in there doing that with. So
Mm.
yeah.
So yeah, I only find that out before I come on here. So that was a fun little email
We,
to get.
well, I hope you don't end up in the hospital. And I'm kidding. I'm sure it'll be
Yeah,
a great thing.
that's what I think it's
I
three.
appreciate it.
Yeah, brother.
Big
Wow,
big
two
love to
hours
big
20.
love to yeah. To, is it two? Yeah, 222. Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
No, I really appreciate it. I'm really happy to connect with you.
always.
And you know, I haven't looked at, I don't have any comments pulled up or anything. I can only see your face, and it's been nice. It's been something that I tried to capture all those years, but again, the atmosphere is different. So it's really felt like a conversation to
Yeah.
me, and I find that very fruitful.
Thank you, brother. I want to just again just really appreciate you and appreciate your time and wisdom today. It's been amazing, very powerful, and I'm happy and excited to see where this all takes us. And maybe
Hmm.
we'll meet in the physical soon enough. Who knows? I'm really feeling that call. If I make it out of
We,
hospital,
we,
you never know.
we got a lot of intel about Mexico, so
Yeah,
you
that
know,
gym there, we've
I'll
been
be happy
called.
to share that. Huh?
We're definitely being called there. We're being called. And this last kick up the assets was the final, like, yes, go.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, brother, it's been amazing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, and excited to see what's birthing in this new energy.
All right, brother. You take care. All right.
Thank you,
I'll see
everyone.
you. Thank you very
See
much.
you soon.